Welcome Libra, it's your in-depth monthly forecast for November 2025. I'm going to share with you some of the key strands of the month ahead to begin with, then on screen your event chart. As November begins, that provides a backdrop that's influential for the whole period. I'll then go through each of the key influences in detail to give you a clear picture of what to look forward to that you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell, a very warm welcome. I have found that over 50% of people who regularly watch my videos are not subscribers. If that's you, please help the channel to continue to thrive and subscribe now, but also please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. My year 2026 Libra video is published. You can watch that and understand what the year ahead holds in store for you by clicking on the link beneath this video. So as you go into this month, Libra, your ruler Venus is in your sign, priming up your sense of attractiveness. Venus is in an opposition to Chiron, the so-called wounded healer, which for you is in your 7th house of relating. Venus in this connection with Chiron suggests that there could be a key conversation you have early on in the month. Could be quite surprising how this comes about. But Venus is going to be travelling through 3 zodiac signs, and that's quite rare. To be fair, the 3rd visit is on the 30th, but on the 6th, Venus moves into your 2nd solar house. Now, although Venus is challenged straight away by the mighty but tiny Pluto, I feel that your financial situation does have an opportunity to revive throughout the rest of this month. So that's really exciting, and I can't wait to tell you more about that. We have 2 lunations this month on the 5th in the other zodiac sign that's ruled by Venus, Taurus, but also on the 20th in the deep and passionate Scorpio. What's the significance of those? Also Jupiter, the planet of fortune, which has been challenged in quite a mighty way over the last year and a half by the restrictive energies of Saturn. Well, this month sees Jupiter also go retrograde along with Mercury, which begins on the 9th, Jupiter on the 11th. But Jupiter is forging a very helpful influence at the start of the month with both Saturn and Mars, and the end of the month with your ruler Venus. And that, I think, can offset in some ways Jupiter's retrograde. Also, Saturn starts to go direct from the 28th. That's welcome too. But I think there is quite an emphasis early on in the month about talking through or thinking about contracts, communications of all kinds, but to do with money. And then later in the month, the pace really picks up, and you may find yourself wanting to break out and be a little bit more connecting in a social context, meeting up with people and having fun. But before I do, I'd just like to tell you about my unique special offer. You can order your personal forecast for year 2026, totally individual to you. You can order that now, get the rest of this year free, but also with my special package, get 30% off in your Life Roadmap Report. For me, the Life Roadmap Report, the natal chart, the Radix interpretation is the most powerful document any of us will ever read, because understanding the patterns that are played out in our lives all the way through our lives helps us to work future forwards in a much more effective way. But in that special package of 30% off, you'll also get your free gift of a general zodiac, a love zodiac, an Indian zodiac, and a Chinese zodiac forecast booklets, which will be sent to you with the chart. Please see the link below for more. So on the screen now is your event chart right at the beginning of November. So let's just take a look at Venus initially. Venus in the 1st house for you is encouraging you really to celebrate your uniqueness, but also your gorgeousness. But you can see that Venus is in a square with Jupiter. If you are a creative, that actually can be very helpful to you. But Venus is in an opposition with Chiron. Chiron in the 7th house maybe asks you in some ways, when it comes to relationships, to value yourself. And yet, if you are in any kind of relationship, and it could be with a colleague as much as in a more personal context, if you look at the position of Saturn, that's in a quincunx with Venus. Someone could be picky, critical, or have some desire to challenge that part of you that wants to be uniquely you. Just bear that in mind as we come into this month. But the two luminaries, the sun and the moon, are beautifully aligned at the start of the month. So if you are balancing your output in terms of your attention, efforts and energy in a way that is productive for you, that can be helpful. However, as I mentioned in my opening introduction, if we look at the position of Mars, like the Sun in the 2nd house, but also at home in Scorpio, and Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune, well, they're very, very positively aligned. So despite the fact that someone might not quite get everything about you in terms of your creativity, your personal a way of approaching things, and it may be someone in a personal context who's just a bit irritable with that Saturn quincunx, I think you could start to receive recognition around your professional efforts that you've been putting in a lot of application over the last couple of years, a lot of dedication, and perhaps been very supportive of others. And I think that can start to come back to you, but particularly once Venus moves into Scorpio, and that could bring in a very welcome uplift in terms of your finances. So that's the starting point of the month. I just need to tell you about the opposition between Mercury and Uranus. So you can see they're in an exact opposition. It's very electric. So you could feel quite restless, but also you can see that Mars is not that far off from Mercury, and that's where we work our way into the month proper, because Mars joins up with Mercury in Sagittarius on the 4th. And I love that for you. Over the next 6 near to 7 weeks, it's going to give you a lot more heft when it comes to conveying your ideas, passion, conviction, enthusiasm. But also, if you're wanting to move around a little bit more, get more active. It could be you want to be more socially interactive, but the enthusiasm and passion Mars brings to your situation will be very welcome indeed. But if you recall, I did mention that this will be a month that could see finances discussed a lot. And on the 5th, we have a full moon. But it's a full moon that's helped by the energy of the North Node. And as I just said, if you've been very sacrificing, very dedicated, really put in every strand of yourself in terms of effort and attention to detail into your work over the last couple of years, I think that's actually a very helpful full moon. It's also seeing the moon in one of its favourite zodiac signs. Ironically, in the new moon on the 20th, it's in one of its least favourite signs. So that's a full moon, which can be for good or bad, which could bring something into the open over the next couple of weeks, which I think can be positive for you. Not least because on the 6th, Venus moves into Scorpio. Now, Venus in Scorpio, they're not ideal for us collectively, but they're great. It's great for you. The only thing I would say to you, that part of you that can have a real appreciation of a little bit of lux and also sugar, especially if you're attending any kind of festive gatherings, you may find those quite hard to resist over the next weeks through to the 30th. But what Venus can trigger is an uplift in your income. It does square with Pluto, however. So if you do encounter someone, perhaps at a meetup, perhaps on a night out with some friends, someone who has something about them that's quite magnetic, you could be tempted to get up close and personal really quite quickly. Now, if you both want the same things, that can be absolutely hunky-dory. But if one of you wants something that's more lasting and more sincere, and the other person sees it more as a fleeting, a more transactional connection, be careful, because Venus can be very flattering. Pluto is very much about power and desire. So someone could, say all the right things, but whether it is sincere or not is another matter. But on the 8th, Uranus inverts back into the sign of Taurus, which, like your sign, ruled by Venus, through to the 26th of April next year. If you have found anything to do with business, shared finances, long-term financial planning has been rather disruptive over the last 6 or 7 years, it wouldn't be a surprise. Maybe there's been times when you've wanted to be much more intimate, at other times you've needed your space, and it could have been quite polarized at times, which may have been a bit confusing. There may be a little bit more of that to come, but equally, if you've got unique ideas that are progressive, but also see you thinking outside the box, you could achieve something or launch something between now and then that can work extremely well. But the 9th sees Mercury go into its third and final retrograde of this year in the sign of Sagittarius, which, can be a bit laissez-faire when it comes to the details. But for you, it's a kind of quite Gemini-like energy. So it could see you through to the 19th when it inverts back into Scorpio, and particularly on the 12th when it combines with Mars, expressing your thoughts very fast, perhaps a little impatiently. And if you are wanting or find yourself sharing an exchange, whether it be email, text message, or through Messenger, don't be too hasty with Mercury retrograde. But of course, Mercury retrogrades give us a chance to think again, to recalibrate and reset. But Jupiter goes retrograde on the 11th. But Jupiter is in the part of your scope to do with success. I can assure you, by the end of June 2026, you will have broken through in some way which heightens your profile, sees you make progress with something that you're invested in as a maker, a creator, or an artist, a musician. Or it could see you snaffle a new job which really is much more what you're after. So initially, Jupiter's retrograde could throw up a fear that whatever you want to achieve professionally is going to be in some ways challenged. And perhaps it can be. I mean, Jupiter's weakness is when we kind of believe that everything will fall into our lap without any effort on our part. So Jupiter works better if we're very realistic. And because Saturn's applying to Jupiter all this month, and Saturn is the planet of realism, that helps to condition Jupiter's tendency to be rather exaggerating, or at times perhaps even a little bit dogmatic. But on the 19th, Mercury inverts to Scorpio. So if you're still grappling with a financial matter and not quite had the breakthrough I mentioned, maybe it requires more discussion. But the new moon on the 20th surely gives you a fabulous opportunity to finally crack the code. It's a new moon in Scorpio. The moon here, as I mentioned before, is in her full, not her favourite location. The sun in Scorpio, for you, is about your foundations, it's about your self-worth, it is about your attitude to resources, but both the sun and the moon are blessed by Jupiter, Neptune and Saturn, but also Venus, pretty close to the position of the new moon. And I feel that that collective, despite at this point Saturn also being in retrograde, which began on July the 11th, can actually prime up a big breakthrough. That's why it's important not to think that retrogrades only bring mischief, only bring problems, only bring delays and roadblocks. They can, but it's all about how we work with that energy. And the 22nd sees the sun sweep into Sagittarius, join up with Mars. It's lovely energy. Saturn goes direct on the 28th. If you have found that your physical vitality has been lower over the last 5 months, maybe you've had some actual issues around your vitality. Perhaps it has been that your load, your workload, or the demands even at home domestically have been a lot to juggle. But the 29th sees Mercury go direct That financial issues start to really clarify. And the 30th, Venus joins up with the Sun and Mars in Sagittarius, which is delicious. So although you may have these conversations about money, although there may be some care that you need to take with the retrogrades, by the end of the month, your ability to use words, language, graciousness, a degree of diplomacy is really going to be heightened in a significant way. And I feel a big breakthrough can come for you this month. And I think it's all about setting your intentions, being uber positive. If you don't quite get the golden prize in November, know that things are very bright as you go into the new month. But the persistence and application you've shown since Saturn's moved into Pisces in March 2023, apart from the short sojourn into Aries from the end of May to the 1st of September this year, will give you an indication. If you've really applied yourself, the return and the reward is within reach. Please check out that year 2026 Deep Dive Libra forecast by clicking on the link below. Thank you so much. Have a great November.